Good morning. I hope you are all doing well this lovely, almost spring morning. Welcome to the home of Unitarian Universalism in Central Washington. My name is Lynn Madsen. I will be your celebrant today, and our worship leader is Deb Miller. We are a faith that believes in radical hospitality. If you are a visitor, we are so glad you are here. We welcome every person of goodwill. Whatever your beliefs or faith, they enrich our community. Who and how you love, where you come from, how you live, if those are not familiar to us, we take that as an opportunity to learn. We invite you all to continue our communion after the service with conversation and refreshments, both here in the sanctuary and on Zoom. For the folks on Zoom, you'll find the order of service and the song lyrics in the chat. And now, if everybody would please turn and wave to the folks on Zoom, the camera is right above the exit sign. And take a few moments to greet the people around you, especially folks that you may not know. So immediately after the service today, on April 8th. The 6th. It is the 6th. Following the service on April 6th, there will be a soul collage forum. Deb Miller and Shannon Eisert will be hosting a conversation about the soul collage process that you will be learning about this morning. We are also kicking off our pledge drive, and Rita has a few words for.
Good morning, everyone. It's that time of the year when we start our annual pledge drive. Why do we do this? Unlike some other religions, we do not receive money from our national organization. We are a self-funded congregation. So to ensure that we have enough money to finance all our programs, pay our minister and employees, and take care of our building and grounds, we ask people to make a financial commitment, one that is rooted in love. And it's for the new fiscal year that begins on July 1st. So I'm asking that as you consider your pledge, that you get out of this place many of us live in. It's called Scare City. You know that place where there's not enough money, leaders, energy, or volunteers. Instead, let's move out of Scare City to a new place. It's a place of abundance, where we get up off of our assets and dance and work together. CUUF is that place. We even have a congregational covenant in order for us all to dance together in rhythm and not step on each other's toes. So as you are joyfully doing abundance, think about this fellowship and what it means to you, your family, and our community. Pick up your pledge packet after the service right at the back if you haven't already gotten one. And for those on Zoom and those not here today, we will be emailing, delivering by hand, or snail mailing packets. The packet and pledge form are also on our website. If you would like more information about the proposed budget that is in your packet, come to the forum next Sunday after the service, where either in person or by Zoom, where Larry Tibiska, our treasurer, can give you all the details. Thanks to all of you as we grow in generosity and joyfully do abundance. And now Gary's going to come forward and tell you why he and I pledge.
No, I was asked to share a few thoughts about just my own process in pledging. So I came to CUF in 1996 in about August, so it was after the pledge drive. And I was an infrequent attender of church in my adult years, and so obviously I knew about collection plates, and I'm sure that, every time I got the collection plate at CUF, I probably put a $5 bill or something. I didn't really think about it very much. And the process, at least back then, was in the stewardship drive, we would have small group gatherings, and some of the folks, maybe from the leadership team, would explain the budget and what went into sustaining our fellowship. And I was really surprised. I had no sense of that. I didn't understand that. It made perfect sense. We have to pay the minister, we have an administrator, there's the mortgage, all those kinds of things. And so it just raised my awareness of, as Rita said, we don't get money from a national organization. This is a self-funding fellowship. The next part of my process, I think, is I got more involved in CUF. So I joined some committees, eventually leadership, and I started to get back a lot of things from the fellowship. And it nurtured or nourished my spiritual part that had been really undernourished for many years. I tended to be kind of a lone wolf, and I started to meet people and develop relationships and be part of a community. So it started to grow in value for me. So I guess my main point of trying to say is I start to pledge with intention based on my values, what I get from it, what I'd like to put into it. And I would just suggest that when you think about the pledge, think about what are your values, what do you get from it, how much would you like to nurture this organization, and obviously in keeping with your financial resources, make an intentional pledge. That would be my suggestion to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary and Rita. Deb informs me, and I want to check this out. Leroy and Chris, is there a newcomers chat right after the service today? Up front, there usually are some refreshments. So if you are new to our fellowship and would like more information, please join. And Chris, Leroy, some other folks will be talking about it and answering your questions. Our fellowship is located on the ancestral homeland of the Pasquosa. For thousands of years, they lived here, making a vibrant way of life and a rich culture from the land, the beings, and the human neighbors with whom they shared it. They were displaced when the army and the government allowed colonists to settle here in violation of treaties and agreements. Today, I have some words from Linda Hogan of the Chickasaw people. She is a poet and author and an environmental activist. Caretaking is the utmost spiritual and physical responsibility of our time. And perhaps that stewardship is finally our place in the web of life, our work, the solution to the mystery that we are. There are already so many holes in the universe that will never again be filled, and each of them forces us to question why we permitted such loss, such tearing away at the fabric of life, and how we will live with our planet in the future. The Pasquosa still live here. They still practice their cultural traditions. They are still trying to form healthy, respectful relationships with the dominant culture and still working to have their rights restored and their treaty obligations fulfilled. We have said we are going to do our part to support them. For more on this subject, please visit our website, cascadeuu.org, under Welcome. And now, let us rise in body and spirit and sing our opening song, Turning of the World.
Our opening words this morning are an excerpt from an award-winning book available in the UU bookstore in spirit. There are times in our life when we must resist. We must resist the oppression of ourselves and others. We must resist the temptation to act when we know we are not grounded in our best selves. Resistance and struggle can be holy acts, expressions of our deepest love for ourselves, our communities, and that which we call holy. And there are times in our life when we must surrender. There are some things in life
and in ourselves that we simply do not have control over. In these cases, surrender does not mean defeat. It simply means that we yield to a power greater than ourselves, accepting and honoring that this problem is too big for us to solve alone. How can we be mindful today of the dance between resistance and surrender? Come, let us worship together. I would like to invite our friend Chip up to help us with the chalice lighting this morning. The chalice and the flame symbol our congregation gathered in principles and faith. If you at home have your chalice with you, please join me in lighting it. Here in the sanctuary, Chip is going to read the first two segments of the lighting, and then we're all going to join in unison.
This is by Anastasia Birosh, and it is entitled Soul Fire. As we light this flame of hope, may our congregation become a kaleidoscope of souls and people. In the presence of this flame, in me, in you, in us, is an invitation to sit at the table. May we tend our soul fire through these challenging and trying times to open the hearts and minds of all who enter our doors.
Now we have a story. Claudia, do you want to come up today? All right, you can sit there and I'll stand here. This is The Rabbit Listened by Corey Deerfield. Now go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share. Now go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share. Excuse me. We'll get this organized. We have two readings today. Maybe I will leave it in my book next time. The first is by Mary Oliver. Truly, we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. How grass can be nourishing in the mouths of lambs. How rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity, while we ourselves dream of rising. How two hands touch and the bonds will never be broken. How people come from delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. And by Hafez. Don't surrender your loneliness so quickly. Let it cut more deep. Let it ferment and season you as few human or even divine ingredients can. Something missing in my heart tonight has made my eyes so soft, my voice so tender, my need of God absolutely clear. We are all responsible for the caring ministry of our fellowship. Throughout the month, our congregational care team works to encourage and coordinate the work of that ministry. The care team representative today is Gary. You can tell him of any needs you have or are aware of. You can also fill out one of the contact cards, which can be found in the pouch in the back of the chairs or in the rear of the sanctuary. As part of our communal ministry, we take time every week to give folks an opportunity to share events or experiences that have moved them in a deeply personal way. This is a time of reverence, an opportunity to open the door to a deeper connection, for the fellowship to create and hold space for those of us who choose to share. Please remember to be brief, to share only what you have permission to share. If there is something in your heart you wish to share, come forward, say your name, and light a candle, and tell us how this has affected you.
Good morning. The first time I stood in this pulpit, Rita Salama, sitting right back there, invited me to be a This I Believe speaker. That was over 12 and a half years ago. I thought of the opportunity as an important life passage as I was nearing the wise old age of 50 that year. I began attending worship services here at Cascade Unitarian Universalist Fellowship 4 years earlier, seeking comfort and community as I healed from emotional traumas that have been part of my life's journey. In the spring of 2011, a month prior to that This I Believe service, I was struck with deep grief after the sudden death of my 39-year-old coworker. This fellowship was where I turned when I needed comfort once again. As I was preparing for this morning's service, I went back to reflect on my sharing from that day and what I believed then. I saw life as an unpredictable journey, guided not by our control or my control, but by the choices that I make. Words and quotes from wise voices seem to find me at the perfect times, bringing meaning like whispers from a great teacher, something greater than myself. At the time, I was embracing William P. Young's idea that God is a verb. He's the author that wrote the book, The Shack. That helped me define a God of my understanding as the unexplainable energy driving my life's unfolding path. A few short months after my experience in this pulpit, I was back up here again, this time as a celebrant and a new member of the worship team. I found joy in service and have been actively involved in worship and other service and leadership roles in this fellowship ever since. There are many, I'm so excited about this, many new to me faces this morning in our congregation who may be asking yourselves, if she's been so involved, why haven't I met her before? There are also those of you who are longtime friends and worship team peers this morning who may be thinking to yourself, hey, wait a minute, where have you been? It's been a minute since I last saw you. This morning, I hope to bring answers to those questions. Life has been a roller coaster of highs and lows for me over the past 8 months. Since I last helped with this worship service, here are the highs. I stepped out of my comfort zone and shared a collection of my soul collage art cards in a public show. I was honored with a beautiful award that reads, in recognition of being the founding mother of Communities and Schools North Central Washington, and for your tireless dedication to educating our leaders of tomorrow. I joined yet another support group. I got lost in the movies. One of them, Inside Out. 2, actually, inspired the title of this service. The lows, I fell and broke my hip. Got a new hip. I lost a dear friend, much too young to cancer. Having only heard the news of her illness and hospice care a few days prior to her passing, The shift in leadership in this country and the devastation it has had on the health and human services sector is real, and it hit close to home a couple weeks ago. The weight of leading a nonprofit health and human services organization towards sustainability and not scarcity is really difficult in these turbulent times. It's become another layer of challenge. This can all be summed up by simply saying, I found my spiritual bottom, and I embarked on a pilgrimage of grief, turning inward, and opening my spiritual search for truth and meaning. The story this morning couldn't have been more perfect. I may even go so far as it was a true metaphor of how my life unfolded these past 8 months. My higher power continues to have an uncanny way of giving me life lessons that keep me curiously seeking and trying to understand my difficult emotions. It works on further developing my empathy and has me continuously learning how to support my family and friends. As paradoxical as it may sound to some of you in this congregation this morning, processing difficult events and emotions and providing meaningful support first to myself, then to my family, then my friends, my staff, and my community who need it, is where I find joy in leadership. It is where I believe I am drawn to serve. Back in January of 2014, I received an email from my mom. While ominous, the email was clearly an amends of sorts. My mom had achieved sobriety 5 years earlier and worked a really strong 12-step program. The 12 steps of recovery were common language that my mom and I shared because I found the 12 steps rooms of Al-Anon when she entered the treatment program for an addiction that was consuming her life. In her email to me that cold January morning, she wrote this: I've never made my amends to you or verbally expressed my thanks for your contributions to my sobriety. Right now, I am physically sober, but spiritually drunk again. Those 3 words, spiritually drunk again, flash back into my consciousness this year. I saw it as a message from my higher power delivered with the force of a cosmic 2x4. Whack. 11 years after my mom wrote that term, spiritually drunk, in her email, I hit an emotional bottom. And I was spiritually drunk on the emotions of grief and despair again. 2 short months ago, I experienced 2 vivid dreams that provided additional messages from afar. One was a dream where my arms were full. How many of you see me walk into this congregation at times? My arms are full of stuff, beyond full of stuff. And in that dream, I had my arms full. I was trying to hold it all. And I was reaching down to pick up an additional bag of rocks. Rocks. Yes, rocks. And they seem to be, in that dream, they seem to be big river rocks, not just a small bag of rocks to paint, but big river rocks. Of course, when I tried to pick up that bag by its handle, it was a paper bag, and it kept tearing. And the more I would try to pick them up, the more it would tear, the more frustrated and determined and emotionally drunk I got. Then I suddenly awoke. And I'll never know if I actually was successful in picking up the bag of rocks. Haven't learned it yet, I don't know. Over the years, I've had a variety of helpful friends and colleagues, just like the friends in the story this morning. Those talking chickens, the angry bears, even the laughing hyena type. There have been remembering elephants, mess cleaning kangaroos, pretending ostriches, and there have even been a couple of sinister snakes here and there. So many friends that wanted to help by doing something, anything for me. Just like Taylor, I didn't need advice, help, or fixing. I needed an empathetic ear. A couple of days after my dream, I was having another hard day at work. The weight of my laundry list of problems and a few others stacked on top were simply just too much. Spent most of the first few weeks in January behind my closed door at the office because it was just too much. I jumped on a business call with my colleague Allison, who gave me the time and the space I needed so I could metaphorically dump the ridiculously large load of stuff out of my arms, purge all those dark, sad stories out of my system. And my friend just listened. She was there for me. She was for me what the rabbit was for Taylor. After generous time and space was offered, my friend simply asked, "What rock can I take for you?" Parker Palmer once said, "The human soul doesn't want to be advised or fixed or saved. It simply wants to be witnessed, to be seen, heard, and companioned exactly how it is." This is what the rabbit gave to Taylor, and in our story this morning, and what my friend and dear colleague gifted me at the start of this year. I was back to seeing the world in full rainbow color again. I was feeling my joyful self again. Many of you know that Carrie Newcomer is one of my favorite musicians. In 2012, she released a song that she titled "Speed of Soul," a song she describes writing as a bit tongue-in-cheek at a time when she'd been traveling intensely across the country. She says this, "I felt I needed to go out and gather up all the pieces of my soul I'd left all over the country. I encountered my own spirit waiting for me in a truck stop diner, waiting for me to realize that I'd been moving faster than my soul could keep up." So what do you think about that? What about this idea of traveling faster than our souls can keep up? Have you wrestled with accelerating speed of our times? I know I have. How do you make space and slow down to reflect and be more present in your own life? If you remember, I started my laundry list of Deb's life unfolding with sharing that I had been invited to be a co-artist in a show and display my soul collage creations. I jumped into a virtual soul collage workshop during the winter solstice of 2020. It was one of those COVID entertain me kind of things. After I'd talked with Shannon Eisert for years about the soul collage process. I created my first 3 cards, which there should be a slide, I think, Darius. Here's my first 3 cards that I created in December of 2020. And have been hooked ever since. I haven't caught up to Shannon, but I have a number of cards. They're really special. Award-winning journalist, writer, and storyteller Aline Dawson asked the question in her article, "Craft Work as Soul Work." How does one achieve greater integration between the authentic versions of ourselves we want to become, ethically, spiritually, humanely, and the versions of ourselves that often are shaped by life's demands and professional ambitions. For me, I found soul collaging a creative path along my own life's pilgrimage. In her article, Dawson goes on to quote author Gil Stafford. He says, "The phrase, 'our work works us,' that's an alchemical term. So whatever you're working on, it's not an object, it's a living entity. And it will do its work back onto you," says Stafford. "We may not necessarily consider what's going to happen 10 years from now, although you probably should be considering what it's doing to you right now, this minute, and how it's shaping your soul." Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Our chief want is someone who will inspire us to be what we know we could be." By introducing me to soul collage and frequently joining me in that creative space, Shannon and another friend, Jill, have been an inspiration by gently nudging me outside of my comfort zone. Little did I know that it wasn't just a fun activity to do with friends on a weekend afternoon. The creative process began awakening my soul. It has helped me get in touch with my inner knowing and find joy and balance again amidst this chaos. In his book, Breathing Underwater, Richard Rohr writes, "As any therapist will tell you, you cannot heal what you do not acknowledge, and what you do not consciously acknowledge will remain in control of you from within, festering and destroying you and those around you." These cards helped me unlock the things I could not see deep inside myself. From the 30,000-foot view, I can honestly say that I have found joy in leadership again. Just like in the pre-flight safety demonstration, once I remembered to put the oxygen mask on myself first, I could breathe. I could look around me and assess the situation. When I realized my emotional state was unmanageable at the beginning of the year, I used familiar recovery tools, friends, and community to get me back to a grounded self. In her book, The Connected Leader, 7 Strategies to Empower Your True Self and Inspire Others, Karen Joy Hardwick writes this: "Leaders are no longer expected to just enhance the bottom line. Many are now being given the sacred duty of spiritually awakening, emotionally healing, and courageously leading from a platform of inclusion, wholeness, and connection." 8 years ago, when I started my current role as executive director in the human services sector, I was busy trying to keep the bottom line from disappearing in a sea of red ink. I was wrestling with urgent fears that told me I didn't have enough time and that I wasn't doing things fast enough, that I wasn't enough. In other words, it was struggling because time was traveling faster than my soul could keep up. As I witnessed this dystopian story unfolding in front of my eyes, our eyes today, it's hard to maintain my emotional sobriety in a spiritually drunk fest around me. What gives me hope is that while I have been slowly and intentionally shifting my focus inward and using creative processes to find myself again, I have witnessed others doing the same. In the Daily Reader, This Day in Recovery, just this week on March 13th, the entry opens with a quote from Erica Hewitt. "The hand you hold belongs to a person who is seeking wholeness and trusts that you are doing the same." The meditation continues by an anonymous writer who offers this: "I've heard it said many times in the rooms of recovery that you're right where you're supposed to be. It takes a level of trust to listen to that voice and actually hear that lesson. Sometimes in Unitarian Universalist faith, it's easier to have doubt than it is to believe or trust or realize that things take longer than we might expect them to. On a day when nothing but good happens, I am able to feel that all that is happening at the right pace. When things don't go the way I want, I struggle. But as we fight the sense of urgency that permeates our culture, we're actually able to move toward wholeness. My fellow travelers, my joy springs from creative activism. I see this congregation carrying out into the world. We are all leaders when we remember that it starts with ourselves. Our good friend Martha Flores is going to share the benediction this morning with us. Martha?
The fine art of healing. My art's intention is to play with symbols. Symbols are metaphor for everyday thinking. Symbols are fluid. Symbols are language. Symbols are life. Creating new symbols is creating a new way of thinking. Art is medicine, a home remedy derived from life itself. It soothes emotional pain. It brings brightness into darkness. It makes sense of senseless moments. It's a healing balsam, alleviating the wound. It is to be shared with others and just maybe help someone in the process, the fine art of healing.
And now, as we extinguish our chalice, please join me in saying the words printed in your order of service or on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and embody in our lives until we are together again. And now, let's join hands or stand shoulder to shoulder and form a circle while we sing our closing song.